H.G. Bulos. Does that name ring a bell?
No.
Coach Rip, I recently heard your pod on functional training, and I've been a long-time listener to the content. I know from previous pods you've mentioned not being a fan of pro sports and the NFL. Well, I'm not a fan in that I don't watch sports on TV.
Like you don't beat your wife.
But I don't watch TV at all. So
you don't beat your wife if she interrupts the game?
I don't beat my wife if she interrupts the game because the game's not on, which is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Right? Netflix recently released an 8-part series called Quarterback, and it follows 3 NFL quarterbacks during last season. I'm a big football fan and really enjoyed it. Well, see, this is how I'm different than you, Bulos. I really don't give a shit about 3 NFL quarterbacks. But to finish his question, parts I thought you'd get a kick out of are the segments where they show the QBs working with the S&C coach.
Oh, it's got to be great.
Oh, that'll be enlightening, I'm sure.
Great.
Right. Check it out if you can. I think it's the episodes 3 and 7 that are most relevant. I mentioned it mostly to get your take, Mark, as I think if you do have a thought, it will be wildly entertaining in that functional training has infiltrated the highest levels of sports. What we mentioned in the functional training podcast that it has.
I thought about.
We mentioned why it has.
I thought about watching that documentary just to see that side of it because I knew they were going to touch on that.
3 and 7.
Yeah.
There's only
episodes 3 and 7.
There's 2 things that personal trainers are doing now, and one is that they're well, actually, there's 3. So there's functional training, which is like pretending to be a physical therapist,
right?
And there's CrossFit.
Right.
And those are the 2 options, unless you're going to be just a pin setter. So nobody wants to be a pin setter, right? So the personal trainers are just that's it. So it's not
Today we're going to do this weird-ass dumbbell exercise that we've never done before, and it's going to make you better Sunday afternoon.
Right.
Right.
And the really good ones are blending the 2. So you have like this blend of CrossFit and functional training. But that it's not just infiltrated professional sports. It's everything everywhere that involves, physical training of any kind.
Here's the problem, just in a nutshell. The general public is not able to distinguish between what genetic freaks in the NFL do and what they should be doing themselves.
Sure, right.
General public is not the genetic freaks, the top 1/1,000,000th of 1% of the human race that can play quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
Right? The general public is not Tom Brady. Tom Brady is really not Tom Brady. The shit he does for exercises and his training and stuff.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
Complete bullshit.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
It has nothing to do with his success. He's successful because he's Tom Brady.
Right.
He's successful because of his mind and his hands and his feet and his ability to move. And all this silly rat shit that he does in his training has nothing to do with that, and what has to do with that is his genetic endowment.
Right.
But you try to explain that to the general public. The general public thinks if they do what Tom Brady does, then they will be Tom Brady. Because obviously that's why Tom Brady is Tom Brady. Sure. It's because of the bizarre shit that he does.
Yep. And the other layer on top of that is that you have these very athletically gifted people doing these impressive performances, because that's what it is.
Yes.
It's a performance. It's displaying an innate athletic ability.
It's displaying what's already
there. It's not developing strength.
It doesn't develop anything because it can't.
Anything. Right.
It merely displays the abilities the athlete already possesses.
So when
that is 90% of what goes on at the D1 college and professional levels. That's 90% of it is displaying the abilities that you recruited
Exactly.
so that the head coach comes down in the weight room and sees that, yeah, he made the right choice in recruiting that guy.
Well, yeah, and so the trainer also strokes his own ego because this person is doing these amazing things, and you can take credit for it. But what everybody needs to realize is you're watching a guy do trap bar, jumping trap bar deadlifts while somebody's beating you in the head with a Bosu ball with 315 pounds. It would be the equivalent of you doing it with 75 pounds.
Right.
That's what we're talking about here.
Right.
That's the equivalence.
Right.
So it's useless.
No, it's utterly useless because it's not heavy enough to make you stronger. The Bosu ball being hit in the head is an excellent way to get a neck injury. And if you don't get a neck injury, it's because your neck is strong.
Right.
And
Yeah, and at best, it's just an added thing that looks interesting,
visual
but it's really
performance
stupid. It's a performance for everybody.
it's a performance, but it's a performance for the head coach who doesn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know anything about it, but that who gets to make the decisions about who lives and who dies. And you've got to impress the head coach. And strength and conditioning coaches that approach strength and conditioning at that level in this way are pandering to the head coach.
Yep.
That's what they're doing.
Right.
They're pandering to the head coach because no one else benefits from this except the strength and conditioning coach.
Right.
The athletes don't benefit from it. The head coach doesn't benefit from it in terms of increased performance levels from his guys. What the strength and conditioning coach should be doing is getting everyone that plays on the offensive line and the defensive line up to a 650 deadlift.
Yeah.
Because then those guys are a lot harder to move around and they're a lot harder to hurt.
Or even just objectively looking at what are the things that this individual that will actually make this individual perform better and how we get there. Right now, I mean, we're obviously strength is going to be the answer in most cases, but they're not even doing that. Like they're not even looking at somebody and saying, okay, this guy needs to do these things, and these athletic attributes need to be improved. So therefore, we're going to do these simple, we're going to follow this process that's going to result in a measurable improvement. That's not even what they're doing. They're just it's completely random.
Right.
Now, then you back engineer an explanation for what you're doing.
Right.
Right.
That's how you do it.
reverse engineer.
Hey, I've got this hopscotch ladder here.
Exactly. Right.
And if I put a 10-pound dumbbell in each of this guy's hands and I have him run forward through the hopscotch ladder and then backward through the hopscotch ladder.
Yep.
And I get the head coach to come down and watch. Head coach says, man, I can't do that.
That, and then
That's pretty good.
the next game when he doesn't get injured, you say he wasn't injured because
the hopscotch ladder.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Until
Yeah,
it does
that's
get injured.
it's
And then when he gets injured, it's like, oh, we got to do a different thing to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. But on this week's episode of Starting Strength Radio, we are going to first beat ourselves about the head and shoulders with the comments from the haters that we normally get from the bottom 1% of the human race in response to previous things we've done. But then we're going to talk about your questions. We're going to answer the questions that you have submitted in what we call a paper Q&A. You submit your questions, we print them off. There's paper right there. I read the questions, and then we discuss the questions. And it's always fun, and it's occasionally even informative. So join us this next time on Starting Strength Radio for this Q&A. See you then.